Hello, welcome back to Ask Dan Anything, and today I've scrolled through Quora, the online question website, Quora.com, to find a question that I'd like to answer, and I've received one from a guy named Hasamran. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And his question is, what should I do when I'm MC at a function at my school, Master of Ceremonies function at a school? I'm very confident, but this is the first time talking in front of the whole school. Well, firstly, congratulations on taking this opportunity and going for it. There is no way to better prepare for something than to actually do it. So you're about to engage in something that most people are terrified of, and in doing so, you're going to boost your own bravery and courage. So well done on doing this. When it comes to public speaking in general, the reason that we feel unprepared and scared of doing it is twofold. One is because we often engage in doing it in the wrong state. I'll talk about that in a minute. And two is perspective. I'm going to start with perspective. So one of the perspectives we take when we engage in in public speaking is that we think that it's different from just talking with our friends. Now, public speaking is just speaking. It is just socializing. It's a version of socializing. And yet for so many people it takes on this beast mode in their mind. It becomes this totally different thing. This bizarre, terrifying experience. Now, the same people who are terrified of public speaking have no problem talking in front of 2 or 3 of their best friends and being the center of attention. And yet that is no different to public speaking. It's just the number of people is greater, but the experience, the ability to speak socially is already there. So one of the things to understand about public speaking is that your perspective that is somehow different from chatting with your friends, from telling your family what happened to you at school that day, is inaccurate. It is not different to that. It is the same. You have already the skills you need to speak publicly if you already know how to speak to your friends publicly. If you already know how to speak to your family at the dinner table. It is no different to that. In fact, the closer it is to that, the more enjoyable it is for the audience. There's nothing better than a public speaker who you feel like is your friend. That they aren't a robot rehearsing a script, but they're someone who's just chatting to you one-to-one. That's what the best public speakers do, because they've discovered the perspective. They realize they're just talking to people. That's all this is. So keeping that perspective in mind, it's hard to keep it in mind, but understand that a great public speaker is somebody who sees public speaking as no different to talking that to their friends at the dinner table or talking to their family. The next thing is about state. So one of the biggest problems people have with public speaking is that they get themselves all worked up beforehand because of that perspective. They think this is a big different thing that I've never done before, which isn't true. You've already done this millions of times. But it's a big different thing. I've never done it before. It's this huge risk. Everyone's going to hate me. They're going to spit on me. They're going to throw stuff at me. This is this important event in the universe. It really matters that I get this right. They get themselves into that state. All of it is a very introverted, isolated state. You're not socializing with anyone. You're just sitting there backstage with your notes, shit in your pants, all by yourself. And yet you're about to engage in socializing. So this is the opposite state needed to perform well socially, isn't it? If you want to do well socially, you need to be warm, open, extroverted, connected with other people. So sitting backstage by yourself is terrible preparation for such a thing. It's going to put you into the opposite state. You're getting ready to study for an exam in that state. You're not getting ready to socialize. So you need to be getting ready to socialize. I'm going to share these practical techniques that I use for when I MC. Is you need to make it that by the time you walk on stage, you're just continuing to socialize. It's not some new thing out of the darkness into the light. That you're just carrying on with what you've already been doing for the preparation for this event. So in order to share how I deal with it, I'm going to talk about an event that I MC'd, one of the bigger events that I ever MC'd. There's only about 300 people there. It was a dancing event, a salsa ball of some kind. And I was kind of the guy with the microphone on stage with another person. So I did feel a bit of nervousness about this. I didn't really know what I had to say. I mean, I was just mostly introducing people, but I had to banter a bit and talk about sponsors and all that kind of stuff, right? I had a bit of stuff to say. And I was having to come in and out and in and out. So what I did to prepare myself is, first thing is I waited at the door and I greeted everyone as they came in. So rather than preparing with the notes that they handed me last minute that I have to know all these names and shit, I just chucked that in my pocket. I could refer to that later. Instead, I just socialized. So everybody came in, I shook their hands, said, "Hi, I'm Dan, the MC. Welcome." I went and showed them to their table. I mean, I couldn't do this with all 300, but I did it with as many people as possible. And this effect is twofold. One is I'm socializing, so I'm warming up socially rather than sitting backstage and shitting myself. And two is I'm turning these strangers, this audience, into people I know. So that when I get up on stage and see them, I'll be like, oh, that's the guy I welcomed, and that's the guy I joked with about his jacket, and that's the girl that I flirted with a bit. You know, suddenly they're real people to me. They're not this big mass audience enemy, you know. So I got to know them. I built up that way, and I just chatted. I just kept making myself socialize more and more deeper, meaningful conversations with as many of those people as possible. When it was finally time for me to walk up on stage, while I did feel a bit nervous, I was able to look out and just see people I already knew. This was just me talking to my friends. There's a lot of them, but it was no different to me just hanging out with a couple of mates at McDonald's. You know, it was the same. I'm just chatting with them. I've got a job to do, but none of them are judging me. None of them are going to hurt me. They're just waiting for me to shut up so they can watch the performances, if anything. You know, I'm not a big deal to them. This is not that important. So that was kind of how I prepared. It's a very simple preparation. It's one that's probably available to you. You can hang out with your friends backstage, if nothing else. Make sure you're socializing as you build up to going on stage, rather than preparing isolated by yourself with notes, right? Make some bullet points for yourself so you got something to work with. But avoid getting yourself locked into something that's just going to make this difficult for you. Yeah? Some other practical tips. Take your time. Your nervousness, there's nothing wrong with being nervous, but it will speed you up. Okay? You'll become hyper activated. So slow down. Focus on being slow. Big pauses between words. You can say something, look out into the crowd. Say something else, look out into the crowd. Make eye contact with individuals. That's a huge one. Rather than talk to the crowd, talk to people one at a time. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. This way you're only having a series of one-to-one communications rather than you talking to an audience. It really gives you the effect that this is personal and social, not this is me holding court. Yeah? Find the eyes and talk to individuals. If you can get your friends to sit at the front or in somewhere where you can spot them, that will help too. So take your time, go as slow as possible. It will still go quite fast. You'll feel like it's slow, but it'll be going very fast. Oh, my computer's making some noise there. So individual eye contact's a big one. Bullet points and not a script. Rather than trying to rehearse something, just have some notes in case you forget, but just freestyle it like you would at the dinner table with your friends. And be honest about any difficulties you're experiencing. So if you find yourself feeling quite nervous, or whatever, you find yourself, this is my first time emceeing, you know, I'm a bit nervous, you can say all of that. If you get that out of the way at the start, not only will people relate to it because they all know what that feels like, but also you will get it off your chest. It won't be this thing you're trying to hide anymore. So if you can go, wow, this is a big audience, this is actually my first time emceeing and I've got a little bit nervous about this, and then continue, now that's out of the cage. Now you don't have to worry about trying to hide it. Everyone knows it. And everybody sympathizes. The reason you're the one on stage is because no one else was willing to do it. Okay? They're scared too. And they'll appreciate you being honest. Well, I hope that helps, mate. For those of you who want your questions to have a rant from me, that sentence didn't make sense. But if you want me to answer your questions, send them through to dan@brojo.co.nz. And follow the YouTube channel, subscribe, whatever, to give me support and ego boost. And I'll see you guys next time.